I never thought LinkedIn would be the thing that broke my marriage. Not some secret lover, not flirty texts or late-night calls. Nope. It was a message from my college ex saying, "Congrats on the promotion." That's it. And yet, somehow, that harmless message turned into an interrogation, an accusation, a full-blown emotional trial run by the man I thought trusted me the most. This is the story of how my husband went full FBI on me. How I started to notice the quiet red flags, the jokes about my coworkers, the subtle jabs, the fake kindness after fights. It's the story of how I found out he didn't just read my messages, he created them. A fake account, a fake guy, a loyalty test I didn't even know I was taking. But here's the twist. I didn't leave because he cheated. I left because I realized I was living next to someone who never actually believed in me. Not really. So, if you've ever been made to feel guilty for being trustworthy, if you've ever second-guessed your own innocence just to keep the peace, this one's for you. Because the worst kind of betrayal isn't being lied to, it's being watched by someone who's already decided you're guilty. Everyone's got a story. Maybe yours hasn't been told yet. If you've lived through something like this, or something no one believed, share it with us. Just click the pinned comment. We'll tell it for you, anonymously, with heart, and with truth. For every 1,000 views this story gets, we donate $1 to a charity helping women and families rebuild after betrayal. Your story could help someone else heal. So, go on. Your life is worth telling. Looking back, I really thought it was just stress. We were in our 30s, juggling jobs, bills, aging parents, and whatever version of dinner we could throw together before 9 p.m. He had deadlines, I had back-to-back meetings, and honestly, we were both running on caffeine, Instacart, and the hope that one of us would remember to take out the recycling. So when he made those little comments, like, "Late again, must be a very dedicated team," I laughed it off. Nervous laugh, of course, but still, I laughed. When I mentioned that Jeff from marketing said my presentation was great, he went quiet, just nodded. I thought maybe he was zoning out, or, planning his next fantasy football draft. Even the time he said, "I just worry, you're really friendly, people might get the wrong idea," I chalked that up to love. A little outdated, sure, but love. I didn't see it for what it was. Control wrapped in concern. Insecurity dressed up as protectiveness. Because he wasn't just being tired or overworked. He was taking mental notes. Every single time. Who I mentioned, what I wore, whether I smiled too long when I talked about someone at the office. And me, I was too busy giving him the benefit of the doubt to notice I was already on trial. That's the thing about emotional surveillance. It never looks like the movies. No wiretaps, no trench coats. Just questions that feel like concern. Jokes that feel just a little too sharp, silence that fills up the room like fog. And I didn't start to piece it together until he pulled out my LinkedIn inbox like it was Exhibit A. It was a random Thursday. I remember because I burnt the toast and the coffee tasted like regret. He was sitting across from me at the kitchen table, staring. Not talking, just looking, like he'd forgotten how breakfast worked. Then, mid-bite, he said it. "So, you're still talking to your ex?" I thought he was joking. I laughed. He didn't. "What are you talking about?" I asked, half choking on a bite of overcooked eggs. That's when he pulled out his phone, opened his photo album, scrolled, stopped, and showed me a screenshot of my LinkedIn inbox, a message from David. David, my college boyfriend from nearly a decade ago. A message sent 2 years ago saying, "Saw you got promoted. Congrats. Hope you're well." No follow-up, no emojis, no flirtation, just a bland, beige corporate pat on the back. But my husband had the whole thing documented, screenshot, date circled, my response, "Thanks, hope you're doing well too," highlighted. Like it was evidence, like he was building a file, and I guess he was. That moment didn't feel like an argument. It felt like an audit, like I was suddenly an employee at my own marriage being called into HR for a policy violation. That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't about David. This wasn't even about LinkedIn. It was about control and how long he'd been quietly collecting reasons not to trust me. After that morning, the LinkedIn ambush over burnt toast, I started replaying all the strange little moments that I'd brushed off. Like when I was assigned to a new client project and he casually suggested, "Could you ask to switch teams? That guy James seems a little too friendly." James, who once complimented my slideshow transitions, truly scandalous. Or when I put on mascara before a Zoom call and he said, "You don't need to dress up for work-from-home meetings, they're just colleagues." As if eyeliner was a gateway drug to adultery. And there was his signature line, the one he always used to end an uncomfortable conversation. "It's not that I don't trust you, it's that I don't trust them." Them, the mysterious them who apparently lurked in every Slack thread and conference room. But the truth settled in fast and heavy. It was never about them. He didn't trust me. Not because I gave him a reason, not because I'd ever broken a promise, but because somewhere along the way, he decided that love meant surveillance, that marriage meant managing risk, that I was a liability in heels and a cardigan. And I realized the red flags had always been there. I just thought they were throw pillows. You know, annoying, but part of the decor. 2 weeks later, I got a DM on Instagram. Some guy named Ben_92 messaged me saying we'd met at a marketing conference in Austin. He remembered my killer smile and said I had real main character energy, which, by the way, is either a compliment or a red flag, depending on the font it's written in. I didn't reply. I don't go around chatting with strangers online, especially not ones who lead with compliments that sound AI-generated. But something about the profile picture made me check again. It was a dog, a brown mutt with one floppy ear, which would have been nothing, except it was the exact same photo my husband used on his old Reddit account, down to the collar tag and the crooked smile. I sat there for a second, heart pounding, staring at this fake profile trying to flirt with me, and realizing it had been built by the man I shared a bathroom with. I confronted him that night, told him everything I saw, word for word. He didn't flinch, didn't admit, just said, "You're being paranoid." paranoid? Let that sink in. The man who read my LinkedIn messages, tracked my email logins, and copied our dog's photo for a burner account was now accusing me of being paranoid. It was gaslighting with a side of tech support. It wasn't the fake Instagram account or the surveillance-level obsession with my LinkedIn inbox, or even the endless emotional backflips I did trying to defend my own basic decency. It wasn't the gaslighting, or the guilt trips, or the way he always framed his control as just caring too much. No. The final straw came on a completely ordinary Tuesday night. He made spaghetti, poured wine, even lit a candle, the one we only use when company's over or when he's feeling performative. We laughed. He kissed my forehead. He said, "I'm glad we're okay." And that's when it hit me. We weren't okay. We were quiet. Because I had stopped pushing back, stopped asking questions, stopped dressing up for work, stopped mentioning coworkers' names, stopped doing anything that might trigger the next investigation. And in that moment, with the kitchen smelling like garlic and the wine glass sweating in my hand, I realized something bone deep. He was only kind when I was scared, when I was walking on eggshells, when I was small, when I was contained. And that's not kindness. That's control with a pretty face and a Pinterest pasta recipe. They say love should feel safe. But what happens when safe starts feeling more like you're on probation? I wasn't sneaking around. I wasn't hiding anything. But suddenly, I was triple-checking my phone before setting it down, locking my screen like it was classified intel, avoiding eye contact with baristas, laughing a little too carefully when a coworker made a joke because, God forbid, someone male made me smile. Every conversation I'd replay in my head. Did I sound too warm? Too familiar? Would he ask why I said thanks with an exclamation mark? I wasn't cheating, but I was living like I'd already been caught doing something wrong. That's not love. That's surveillance. It's that subtle shift from partnership to paranoia, from "I missed you today" to "Where were you?" from "I trust you" to "Let me just make sure." I used to think love was about knowing each other deeply. Now I realize it's also about choosing not to monitor each other constantly. Because there's a difference between intimacy and interrogation. And once you cross that line, it's not a relationship anymore. It's a one-person security checkpoint. And eventually, you stop showing up with love. You show up with your ID and a password. 6 months after we separated, after I packed up my plants, canceled our joint Spotify, and started sleeping diagonally in bed, a mutual friend sent me a link. A Reddit thread. Anonymous. Of course. The title? I read my wife's LinkedIn messages. She was talking to her ex. I feel betrayed. And I knew immediately it was our story. Except it wasn't. In this version, he was the wounded spouse. He was blindsided. He was emotionally wrecked by my inappropriate connection. He told thousands of strangers I had never respected his feelings, that I had crossed a line, that I was emotionally cheating. And the internet? Oh, they rallied. They told him he was brave, that he should protect his peace, that maybe he deserved better. He painted himself as the good guy, the heartbroken husband who just wanted honesty. But the twist? The timestamp. That post was dated a full week before he ever confronted me at breakfast. A full week before the dramatic, "So, you're still talking to your ex?" line? Before the screenshots? Before the moral high ground? He didn't stumble across the message and react. He planned the confrontation, tested the waters online, crafted the narrative, collected validation, before he even asked me a single question. So while I was making coffee, wondering if I should pick up oat milk for him, he was scripting a version of our marriage where I was the villain. And honestly, that hurt more than the surveillance, more than the fake account, because it meant this was never about truth. It was about control and image and playing the role of the hurt husband before the curtain even rose. People always ask, what was the moment you knew it was over? And for a long time, I thought it was the LinkedIn confrontation, the fake Instagram account, the Reddit thread. But those were just symptoms. The real sickness ran deeper. The real betrayal wasn't a message from my ex. It was realizing the person who promised to love me, to choose me every day, was spending more time checking my inbox than listening to my heart. That's the part that gutted me. Because insecurity, we all have it. We all wonder sometimes if we're enough. We all get jealous, or scared, or unsure. But love means you take those feelings to your partner, not to a private browser window. You say, "Hey, something's bothering me. Can we talk?" Not, "I made a spreadsheet of your recent messages, highlighted in red." It's one thing to be afraid. It's another to turn that fear into surveillance, to gaslight, to interrogate, to treat someone who's always been faithful like they're one compliment away from betrayal. That's not love. That's punishment for a crime they never committed. The real betrayal was that I spent years loving someone who didn't believe I could be trusted, even when I gave him no reason not to. He wasn't trying to catch me in a lie. He was just looking for confirmation that I didn't deserve the trust he never knew how to give. And the lesson I took from that? If someone treats you like a suspect long enough, you stop feeling like a partner and start feeling like a prisoner. And that's not a relationship. That's a sentence. There was no screaming, no slamming doors, no dramatic, "you never really knew me" moment. Just a quiet morning. One bag packed neatly. Passport, charger, that one hoodie I always stole from him but never liked the smell of. I didn't leave like the woman in a soap opera. I left like someone who'd already had all the fights, in her head, in the shower, in therapy. And when I walked out that door, I didn't feel angry. I felt light. Because when you've spent months being dissected, watched, interpreted like a crime scene, the most powerful thing you can do is take back your own story without asking for permission. I left him a single text. "You don't need to check my messages anymore. You won't be getting any." No hate, no guilt, No endless explanations, just a boundary. And honestly, that silence was louder than any fight we ever had. If you've ever been in a relationship where you felt more like a suspect than a partner, I just want you to hear this. You're not overreacting. You're not paranoid. You're not too emotional. You're probably just being watched by someone who never learned how to love without fear, without control, without needing to search for proof instead of giving trust. Because real love, it's not about monitoring, it's about believing. And when someone treats your privacy like a problem to be solved, it's not because you're hiding something, it's because they are. Let's normalize talking about emotional surveillance. Let's stop calling it being protective when it's really possessive. And let's stop making trust a reward you earn by walking on eggshells. If you've lived this or know someone who has, share your story using the pinned link in the comments. We'll protect your identity, but we'll amplify your truth. And for every 1,000 views this video gets, we'll donate $1 to support survivors of emotional abuse and those rebuilding after toxic relationships. Because love shouldn't feel like a courtroom. And if someone's scrolling through your LinkedIn like it's evidence, maybe it's time to update your relationship status, not your resume. This story is one of many. Yours could be next. Subscribe, share, tell your truth. We're listening.